You and me, we know this guy, right? Even those not out to master this character have reported, from what I can tell, that Lars in Tekken 8 is not too distant from his Tekken 7 self. I think that assessment is correct. He is the same, but different. Let's get into it. Getting the clutter out of the way, Heat has been nerfed. I recall being able to do more things with this mechanic within combos than you can do now. You've probably noticed this as well, but as someone who isn't that big a fan of Heat, and admittedly at the moment doesn't pay too much attention to it, I don't mind at all that it's been toned down and more confined. I'm noticing people more so inclined to use Heat as a setup to Heat Smash, aka Rage Drive, or do a lot of Heat stuff to chip down your health. Sheesh. Alright, wire to wire, let's get into the frames. If I don't mention an attack, that just means there was no change from Tekken 7 to Tekken 8. It's the same as it ever was. Let's start with the frames and go through all of its complications and combinations from there. Without Heat, Delta Slicer is now +5 on hit, instead of knocking down your opponent as it was in Tekken 7, and is -12 on block as opposed to Tekken 7 where it was a launch punishable for some members of the cast, -14. It would seem though that if only the last attack is blocked at tip range, this is -11, but you'll probably be counter hit long before that, right? Left-right combo is now +8 on hit. It was +7 in Tekken 7. You'll see this onesie-twosie frame difference applied throughout this new Lars that's been created. But once, where you would hit him with that 1-2 combo, +7, then go for something bigger framed like Tactical Sword, an 18 frame move. Even if it's foolish to challenge here, Ops can challenge with the jab string and make Lars all sad inside. But with that 1 frame difference, it makes it so Lars will trade with the 1 jab, if not just beat them out if they're slow on the button, and Tac Sword still knocks down on counter hit. This is a win, and it appears that Tac Sword promptly after 1-2 can't be sidestepped or sidewalked. Nice. On block, left-right comm is -3 instead of -1. So it might be better to go for a sidestep initially against an unfamiliar opponent as opposed to like a down forward 1 because it's being thrown out at 16 frames now. Perhaps just repeating left-right comm is another option to look for as it will come out at 13 frames. Ring Current is definitely a new move that I like. It's still sad to see the Lightning Assault strings go, but it's a great +8 on hit, and Lars shifts into limited entry. While rising options or full crouch options, there's quite a bevy of options Lars can go into. This beautiful new move is safe at -6. Though this whole string happens fast, one potential issue I see in this move is that starting with the 2 button, the right punch, there is no variation to throw your opponent off. No 2-4 to go into or a low or anything like that. But that might just be nitpicking, which is something I try hard not to do. The 2 button is neutral on block, so it's still anyone's game from there. So Kickstart is neutral on hit, +6 shifting into limited entry. It used to be +5 on hit and +7 shifting into crouch stance. Again, it's all those while rising, limited entry, and full crouch options from here. However, this string is a whopping -17 on block. So you never just want to throw this move out by itself. Shifting to limited, it's only minus 11. Used to be minus 10. Even still, that minus 17 is crazy to me. That brings me to Flash Bullet. A mere +1 on normal hit. In that sense, it's a get off me tool. And Lars can get some space back. But shifting into Silent Entry, Lars is +9. And if the enemy doesn't respect, you have a variety of ways to make them pay. And if they do respect, you have options to shift to limited entry or dynamic entry from here. Painfully, Flash Bullet is minus 11 on block. But will an opponent press in fear that you may shift? Now that is the question. A theme I caught here that if played right or just downright crazy, Lars is a risk taker, but he may be able to turn his opponent into a risk taker too. Going from Flash Bullet into Sin on block, Lars is only -3. This took my attention because you Lars aficionados already go into Sin with the Wild Rising 2 on block because of the threat of the counter hit launching follow-up in Tekken 7. Lars is -5 here, but yet he can still play his game, which brings me back to Flash Bullet into Sin, -3, perhaps opening the door for Lightning Thrust, a mere 15 frames at this point, or Electric Volley may get you out of trouble. Either way, I'd keep this particular -3 frames in mind. And of course, Flash Bullet grants a free attack on counter hit, making this move even more dangerous. HE combo is +13 on block if you charge it, and your opponent stands still. Good luck with that one. But this string has a big, much welcomed change. It's now a meaty +8 on normal hit, where in Tekken 7, it was neutral on hit. Though that really sweet +23 sit them on their butt counter hit property is gone. That +8 does have your opponent at a distance. Windlighter, though not fitting the frames, does reach. As well as Elbow Corona, Double Pulse, and Cross Transistor. So have fun with all of that. Maybe even a dynamic entry if you find your opponent overly respectful. Keep in mind, a simple backdash does make most of these options null and void. Inductance is +6 on normal hit now, used to be +5, +10 on counter hit, and upon earning this counter hit, Lars can shift uninterrupted into dynamic entry, wherein a normal hit in shift is +7, and a counter hit is 10 and +11 going into the shift. Good frames with guaranteed hits with it. And inductance is -13 now instead of -14. So the likes of Brian and Lars will no longer be able to launch this on block. Also, it's -8 on block, shifting into Den stance. I'm really digging this next change here. Gilbert Smash now comes out one less frame than it did before. 15 frames instead of 16. So it now joins the ranks of all the follow-ups off of the plus frames where you would do magnetic knee, double tap, power spike, all 15 frames. It also has seemingly received a range buff, hitting as far away as 2.45 Tekken distance. That would be this little guy at the bottom of the screen here. In Tekken 7, anything past around 2.25, you can forget about it. Too long didn't read, Gilbert Smash now hits faster and from further away. all its counter hit properties, complete with delay, are still there, as well as its minus properties. They are exactly the same. Gilbert Cannon is the same as ever, save for, of course, it starts at 15 frames now. Wind Liger is plus 9 frames now, previously plus 6, and is officially confirmed as safe at minus 9 on block. Once minus 11. People sidestep Lars a lot when they know it is his weakness. But I don't know if I should say enjoy this while this lasts, as it may be subject to nerf. I don't hear anyone complaining about Lars being overpowered right now. Time will tell. Orbital is minus 8 instead of 9. Okay, we'll take it. The bombastically named Avalanche Flip Breakdown does its side switch thing on hit, but is a mere minus 4 on block. So have that sidestep, sidewalk ready, or challenge with a 10 frame if Ops is throwing out a bunch of heavy frames. Oddly enough, if you go into this flip breakdown thingy from Dynamic Entry Rimfire on hit and it's blocked, you're an even smaller minus 3. That's pretty good. Avalanche Drop is a 1+2 break.
Give me your head, bro. Give me your head, bro. Give me your head, bro.
People don't seem to know that.
Give me your head, bro. Give me your head, bro. Give me your head, bro.
Enjoy that while it lasts. Cross Transistor is a great +9 on hit and auto shifts into dynamic entry while holding those frames. Following the path of inductance on hit, in that Lars has some ways to go into dynamic right in his opponent's face while they're standing, and he has plus frames. You have to gamble with your life to get this, but it's Lars. One way or another, you are probably already doing that, right? 9 times out of 10, in the beta, I would go for a simple Den 2 Rimfire from here. Something about being able to go for a safe counter hit launcher for free is just so beautiful to me. If the second hit of Cross Transistor is blocked on its own, Lars is -7, stuck in stance. Perhaps stancing back to get the heck out of dodge is something to turn a disadvantage into an advantageous situation. But you are a Lars player. I'm sure you'll think of something. Double Pulse. This is -3 on hit now. Perhaps in hindsight, I'll figure out why that is. At the moment, I just can't see that, but on block, of course, you still give up the ghost. Red Sprite is +6 on block. Used to be +8. Tekken 7 Multiplied Force +5. In Tekken 8, a weakened +2. Still forces crouch. But this is where I think the devs have taken Lars in this game. That +2 invites your opponent to press just that much more, hinting at you to backdash or sidestep. I mean, your down forward 1 will trade with an enemy's rising 4, and if you junk punch with these frames in mind, it will beat out theirs. But I think I see how the devs envision this character now. I'll get back to that later though. And Multiplied Force still has the same -12 frames. Glassbreaker is a you always want to transition move. There will be a few of them in the Lars move list. It's -3 on hit if you don't transition. +6 shifting into limited entry on hit. Again, the entire world of Lars' style and substance opens up with his Lin options and rising attacks and power spike. Those 15 frames fit quite nicely here. Glassbreaker, no shift, on block, is a nasty minus 15. Shift, and it calms down to 11, where I think you can backdash away from getting hit. Man, I thought Tower Cannon was plus on block. Damn it, it's neutral. Looks plus on block though. Get away with it as long as you can when the game comes out. However, it is to be expected for a move that is a devastating normal launcher on hit that provides easy damage. Even more so if it's scored on a counter hit. Yeah, I'll take that. But wait, there's more. Shifting to Lin on block from Tower Cannon, those plus frames appear. +4. Now that is what I'm talking about. Implement a Wild Rising 4 here for free, or just about. You'll trade with a 1-jab, or just plain beat out any heavier framed button. But both Lars Lin options here become more viable because opponents have to be precise in their counter options. Alright, more quality of life stuff. Landing this string, double barrel, the first and second hits are same as always, without heat of course. The bump up in life comes from the first attack being blocked. Lars in Tekken 8 is +1. T7, he was -1. Here is a great place to shock your opponent with Ring Current, 10 frames. Or bait out a high attack or parry if you think you have the read. Shifting to Silent Entry from that +1 elbow. In Tekken 8, Lars is -3, where once he was -5. And keep in mind, you can stance back from here. Sin to Din as bait. Now it's time to talk about everybody's new best friend, Bowshock. +5 on hit, without heat, shifts to Silent Entry. Your enemy really playing with their life if they press here. But the highlight of this move to me is its +3 on block. Still shifts to Silent Entry, where Lightning Thrust beats out an opponent pressing. And into the heat zone you'll go. Because that one unbeatable option in terms of pressing against Lars, you may be able to go for bigger frame stuff if the ops respects your buttons. At 22 frames, this airborne attack can be floated, but this is still such a great move. Stack Up is a bit gross at -14 on block. Shifting to Silent Entry cuts it to -7, in which case that armored electric volley may get you out of trouble if your opponent presses. -3 on hit if you literally just stand there. Otherwise, that shift to Sin has Lars at +4. Once again, we have options. Or, on counter hit, Lars is +12, with shift to Silent Entry and guaranteed Lightning Thrust hit. Speaking of Lightning Thrust, it's now -6, as before it was -10. The pushback made it hard for this move to be punished anyway, but now it's safe for real for real. Another new move in the Lars arsenal, Entangling Ejector, 14 frames, pretty great, safe at -9 and sets up good Oki on normal hit. Lightning Axle, replacing Hurricane Axle, splats the enemy at your feet on hit. It's neutral on block and forces crouch. Good time to sidestep and arc blast, no? Blasting Smack is 16 frames. Sounds like the finishing move of one of those slap champions, right? This smack is only minus 12 on block. Not bad. And though from a stance, we have a Lars low attack that grants plus frames on hit that doesn't involve him risking his entire life bar. At plus 4 here, I really like how I'm not just in a stance and can choose to go into one or not, or stick with while rising. I know Cross Transistor starts low and ends up in a better framed place, but you're in a stance there. That's really great, but this move is just one step closer to that dream low attack I hope they give Lars one day. Rising Force, another one that hits at 16 frames. With, in my opinion, Ring Current the best and safest way to get into this move, and Glass Breaker being a not too distant second. This attack does chip on block, but I notice enemies think it's armed with plus frames. Hell, I thought it was too, but alas, it's minus 9 on block. In my apologies, but in one of my last videos, I really thought this move hit grounded. But it turns out the enemy has to be moving to get off the ground for this to hit. Awesome knockdown if you get the hit though, and pretty good in Oki situations as well, but we'll come back to that later. Then we officially have some heat frames. Heat Burst is 16 frames, plus 2 on hit, while inflicting a mere 12 damage. Placing an opponent in crouch. They can certainly challenge you here. Despite all the flair and effects, both players still get to play Tekken. On block, Lars is plus 1 with a hefty hand of pushback. And if your opponent backdashes after blocking, they are New York City block away from you. This telling me, along with other factors, that heat isn't going to be the end-all and be-all of, well, all things Tekken. There is a nice amount of restraint here in what you can and cannot do. Fitting for Lars and what he's supposed to encompass and be, the move called Rebellion, plus 5 on block, plus 10 on hit, with an extremely humble 5 damage. This is really to put you in position to test your opponent's defenses. Shifting Lars into Silent Entry. If we haven't gotten enough crazy names yet, let's take a look at Thunderbird Descent. You're plus 10 on block, but you leave your opponent in crouch. I was coming across a lot of enemies who would stay ducking, taking away all of your dynamic entry high options here. Still though, it's plus 10, so free rimfire or a bow shot, though it's higher framed and riskier, the advantage clearly is still yours. One more thing about heat. All heat engagements are plus 17 on successful activation of the cutscene. We got some frames on the table, but what else is on the plate? I found more success in achieving victories in the last closed network test than in this one. Perhaps an influx of Lars players, or the character being more known. Only when I altered my game plan to shifting to more of his new tricks, that is to say, swaying back from stance to stance, and new plus frames, did I get my game back on track. Which brings me to what I think Lars is currently. A great counterpuncher. Not heavy on strings or the most hard-hitting, but rather, if you're familiar with boxing, a Mayweather mixed martial arts style counterpuncher. Take Multiplied Force, for example. Plus 2 on hit, the enemy, knowing that or not, may challenge. And Lars wants them to challenge. A little sway back, the illusion of safety, and you have Arc Blast. Very familiar, right? As I mentioned earlier, Den 1, opponent challenges with something. Maybe they know Lars is plus here, or they expect the following high. But through conditioning, they go for a low attack, a low attack in which you see coming because of that conditioning you've created, seeing this low attack over and over again. And you parry, counteraction, counter punch. I mean, every character has their counter hit moves and actions, sure. But this is when the innovation to Lars' stances come into play. Flash Claw or Charge Factor on block, shift back to Din. You're minus, but can still cause a whiff. Ducking and going for heavy damage, Tower Cannon is a counter punch. Or kick, rather. Tower Cannon on block and shifting into +4 is a bit misdirection, confusion. There is a litany of things that simply could not be covered in this weekend sample of Tekken. But these 1-2 strings, these little setups, it all shouts counterpuncher. Get ready for the next battle. Now, let's look at the other thing that makes Lars, in my opinion, one step closer to the gods. This is for certain. Where Lars is clearly better than his previous self is his ground game. Not that he was bad before, but these new additions and all of what he can do now just makes him, in a word, glorious. Probably mentioned before, but bow shot goes over wake up lows. Entangling ejector, hitting those waking up, flips them back onto the ground for more Oki. Double barrel, no heat, hard knocks down, giving you the opportunity to get the following shot right up next to your opponent. Stomp has a lot of utility, taking away a good chunk of health, as noted in a previous video, leads to guaranteed stuff on counter hit, but just as big a point is that it adds to a tool belt of weapons the enemy has to take account of. You can stomp as they get up, stay on the ground, score a counter hit, go for an unsafe launcher in Rising Storm, dynamic entry forward to get that last bit of health off of an opponent, advantageous ties. Tower Cannon shows its range and is death for an enemy if they wake up after, say, a elbow Corona knockdown, and you just sneak this in there, on top of all of the Oki things he could do before. In a few sample sizes I've shown you thus far. Here, enter stance back, or shift from stance to stance. And limited entry can be incorporated too, though albeit in an odd way. Blasting Smack in 2 options. Rising Force will knock them down. You'll be creative. You're a Lars player. Hell, you're probably ahead of me. But alongside that counterpuncher aspect, I also think his ground game excels. You can certainly do some of these things in Tekken 7 already. However, with the additions to all of these options and how the devs have altered him just so, he's the same, but different. Join the new wave as we move ever so closer to a new era in Tekken. Laters.